Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the next in our series of the Old Warner/EMI Klemperer edition. The boxes, here it is. Now, I've always hoped that they would get themselves together and do a really complete Klemperer edition, a big box. But there's no sign of that happening yet, and so now we need to do a dozen little boxes, which is fine. When the big box comes out, I can say, well, we've already covered the little boxes, and it's mostly the same. We can only talk about the things that are different. But, Klemperer was such an important figure and a wonderful conductor, and this particular little box features 20th century music. Now, there are 3 CDs plus a 71-minute biographical memoir, which is actually kind of fun. These biographical memoirs that are part of this series and the Icon series and whatnot, they're done by who's it, John Tolansky, I believe. Yeah, and they're usually very good, actually. I enjoy listening to them once, maybe not more than that, but yes, they're interesting. Now, Klemperer was, in fact, quite the 20th century music guy. When he ran the Kroll Opera in the interwar period in Germany, and he was a big proponent of contemporary music, but he didn't get to record much because by the time his recording career took off under Walter Legg after the war in the late 50s, the middle 50s forward really, he was the grand old man of German music, known for his Beethoven and his Brahms and that sort of stuff. But we get glimpses of his earlier Fach, as we call it, the biz, his earlier specialties. And here are 3 discs of them. And they're, they were done in his late grand old man period, so they lack some of that youthful fire. But let's go through these. And this is not complete. Of course, it's not complete. I mean, there's more stuff that he recorded, including an absolutely horrible Petrushka, which was released on Testament. I mean, it was one of his last recordings, and he just could not keep the orchestra together rhythmically, and it's a horrible mess and kind of a shame, but technically it should be included. That's all right. Let's just go through this and we'll see what we got. Ready? Stravinsky, Symphony in 3 Movements, Pulcinella Suite, and the Weill Kleine Dreigroschen Musik, the little 3-penny music for wind orchestra. A lovely and a charming work that was commissioned by Klemperer. Klemperer sort of owned it, but this is a late performance and it's kind of clunky. I mean, it's not bad, but it needs more just Schwung, as they say, auf Deutsch, a little bit more impetus. I mean, the Kanonen song, Soldaten wohnen, cha-cha-cha, auf dem Kanonen. Well, dum-pa-dum-pa, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum-pa, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum-pa-pa-da-dum-pa-dum. It's supposed to have, lively, popular rhythms. Well, under Klemperer, it's sort of like dum-pa-dum-pa, chung, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's more like a fat guy during Oktoberfest. And, well, I suppose that's legitimate, but, the rest of it's pretty good. And the Stravinsky works, well, they need more rhythmic acuity and a little bit more sheer speed. Klemperer was a big proponent of Stravinsky. But, this is 20 years too late, and that's the way it is. You can enjoy them for what they are. They're not badly played like that Petrushka is horribly played, but they are definitely heavy, adipose Stravinsky, let's just say. All right, disc 2. Klemperer does Klemperer. We have his Merry Waltz, which actually got performed a few times. Stokowski recorded it. And his Symphony No. 2, and the String Quartet No. 7. Now, which was a nice thing to do for him in his old age. Klemperer was always trying to get his music performed. And he would send letters requesting this and scores to all the other major conductors of the day. He sent them to Bernstein and whatnot. And they all ignored him, except for Leopold Stokowski, who did the Merry Waltz. And, his music wasn't very good. It's not. It sounds like late German decadent fin de siècle, but it's kind of concise. The symphony's not very long. I mean, it's interesting to hear. No one is going to, the quartet just sort of meanders. No one's writing home about it. A lot of conductors, most conductors, in fact, were also composers. and the smart ones gave it up. Klemperer, of course, was manic depressive, and he had his high and low cycles. And when he was manic, he would write to everybody to try and get his music played. When he was not manic, he didn't care so much. So they let him do his own second symphony, and it's nice to have. And it is modern music, obviously. And it's a memento of somebody who was never going to make it as a composer. But that's all right. I mean, so that's disc 2. I mean, this is, as you can tell, for Klemperer fans only. Disc 3, Hindemith, Nobilissima Visioni. Very good performance of that. That worked out just fine. I wish we could have had him do more Hindemith. That would have been a composer who would have been perfect for him. Even though Hindemith made his own rather stiff and clunky recordings of his own music. But this Nobilissima, it's well done, and the work suits Klemperer because it has that sort of, it's got a passacaglia, it's got that sort of grandeur in it built in. And then you got Humperdinck, Hansel and Gretel, the overture and dream pantomime. Well, it's not exactly, I guess it's 20th century, kind of, isn't it? But, okay. Very nicely done, by the way. It's beautifully done. And then we have the biographical memoir. And that covers this Klemperer 20th century music box. It's not a major thing in his discography. It doesn't contain all of the 20th century music that he recorded. And it would be nice. He was, one of his big pieces was Janáček's Sinfonietta. And there are live recordings of him doing that. In other works, like he was a Janáček guy. He did all kinds of stuff. But alas, that ain't what we're going to hear in his official discography. So this is tantalizing for what might have been, rather than for what actually is. And that's just the way it goes. Sometimes there's so much good Klemperer out there. It's fine. And we'll be keeping up with these little boxlets and the edition, in due course. Actually, it's fun to do. I should speed this up a little bit and get through them. So there you go, friends. Keep on listening, and thank you so much for joining me.